Welcome to the Travsessed Podcast.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yes.
You guys are, and I was telling you before we hit record, you are our very first video interview we've ever done. And our first interview we've done in 2
probably
years.
since then,
Since we interviewed you last. Like that.
Wait, really?
It's been a minute.
It's been a hot minute. And so we've been talking to each other. And so it's so much easier to just kind of riff off each other. But now it's like this whole dynamic. We're growing with the podcast.
Yeah.
So we're glad that you guys are here because you guys are so easy to talk to and so much fun. So it'll be nice to rip the Band-Aid off with you guys.
If we're watching Steve Bear with us.
I'm really excited. I don't even know if she remembers this, but this was our first podcast we were ever on too. So it's just kind of full circle.
Stop it.
Wow, that's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah, he said he listened to the first one we did with you, or I don't know when, but he was like, man, we've just grown so much since then. I'm like, I'm sure it feels like so long ago.
Right. I know. I think it was maybe a year or two ago.
We interviewed them when we were in Palm Coast.
3 years?
3 years, because we were building the first van, which was in 2020. So
okay.
I know.
So for the listeners, if you don't know, we interviewed Skip and Jazz 3 years ago.
2.
I thought you said 3. 2. Okay.
2.
2, 3, whatever. And at the time, you guys were just building your very first van.
Beverly.
Sweet Bev.
Sweet Bev.
Shout out.
Miss dearly.
Oh, and you hadn't lived in her yet. You hadn't traveled in her yet. You hadn't finished her yet. And in this 2-year period, not only have you finished the van, lived in the van, worked in the van, sold the van, but now you're building a new van, which is amazing and
exciting
at the same time.
We're so excited to dive into that, but I really want to know where you guys were before you even started traveling. What was that life like for you guys? What were you doing? What did that look like? Before travel was even a thing.
So we started dating in grad school. We've been friends for a really long time, since we were 18, but sparks didn't fly until 22 or 23, something like that.
Years old.
Yeah. She had a boyfriend when we met. But anyway, so we were living in Kansas City, which is actually where we're at now because we own a property here and kind of pop back here as needed. But we went to grad school, me in Kansas City, her in Pittsburgh, and then she moved up to Kansas City after grad school. I worked for about a year as a perm PT, and it only took about 6 months for us to decide that the 9-to-5 grind, the normal lifestyle, was just not for us because it was just draining everything that we had.
And to kind of add on to that, so I graduated grad school a year before him. So when he started, I had already been into the workforce for a year, and I was coming home crying, 3 days out of the week. And I remember feeling guilty because the job was great. I had my own office. It was a small company. I could move up in it, all of these things. And I could not figure out why I was just so unhappy. And then when he started working, he worked weekends and I worked the week. And so we were kind of didn't really get to spend time together. And then there was a week between Christmas and New Year's that I had the whole week off, and we got to hang out, and we were like, man, we get to eat breakfast together. We, get to go to lunch, just the little things we saw, how much we loved and missed them. And so we were we got to do something different. We just have to make a change. And then a lot of people, I don't know if they know this, but I was kind of the one that pushed him into travel PT or travel therapy. Because we met because I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. And then I was like, people smell. I don't want to do that. So I knew of travel therapy. And I remember him saying at first, no, I don't know if I want to do that. I kind of want to maybe move up at the clinic that I stay at. And then, so 6 months into him being at a hospital, he was like, okay, yeah, we can't do this. Let's move. I also had a really, really good first job. It was my last clinical experience, and I just kind of slid into a full-time position there and had really good mentors. It was a great inpatient rehab situation, but it, again, our souls were just being drained by the life we were living. So we started looking into maybe buying a house in Kansas City and getting a puppy
And then we were like, no. So then we started looking into moving to Colorado, and I actually like interviewed for a perm position there, and they really wanted me to come, but they wanted us to come too early. So we would have been paying double rent, which we couldn't afford. So that went to the wayside. And then I started calling around to different job recruiters, and one of them ended up being a travel therapy recruiter, which I wasn't aware of when I called him. And then he was like, have you ever thought of travel therapy? And I was like, yeah, kind of. So I started chatting with him. And that's kind of what sparked us into researching the lifestyle. And, we were watching your guys' stuff. We were watching, all of the different resources that were out there at the time, learning more about the lifestyle. And we just decided that's the route we wanted to go. So we sold all of our stuff in our Kansas City apartment, including my car, took her one car out to Santa Cruz, California for our first assignment. And that's all she wrote.
Wow.
Wow.
So
Good.
it seems like you guys then knew pretty quickly into your careers, like you were saying, like, this isn't the life for us. We want more freedom. We want more adventure. Like, this grind is just not for us. And you found out about traveling really quickly.
Mhm.
And then it took a little bit to warm you up, Skip. And then you guys were like, hell yeah, let's do the damn thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to say too, full transparency, Kim was like, well, I really want to find out how they got into traveling, because I'm sure Skip was the one that pushed it. But
everybody thinks that.
We just learned. That's all. So how did you find out about it, Jazz? How did you know about it?
Well, because I in undergrad, I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. And so I don't know why I knew it existed, but I think.
I mean, travel nursing was even pretty well known, when we were in grad school. So I think we just heard, I knew about it too. I'm from a smaller town than she is. And, Kansas City was like this big, glorious place to me, whereas she grew up in more of like a city. So like, I was just probably more content than she was at the time, because I grew up in like the boonies and she grew up.
I traveled a lot, like growing up. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know how I knew exactly how it.
It's one of those things.
Yeah.
Okay. And you guys, you lived together at the time, but you weren't married.
Correct.
Great. So you lived together and you owned a home, or you were just renting, or like?
At the time we were just renting. We bought a place last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were just renting and you're like, let's sell everything and like get on the road.
Oh.
Yep. And then we left for California. We had a week booked at an Airbnb. We had no idea where we were going to stay. Like,
of course you didn't.
Yeah. And we started out like the first week was like, it was pretty bad. Like, that was probably his worst contract. Like, it was still a good contract, but it was probably the worst one he's had. And also at the week, at the Airbnb, it was like with a family, and we were downstairs, like across from like their kids that were like 2 years old and like 3 years old. And there was like, there was like they were very kind. It was like a beautiful
really nice,
house.
yeah.
It was in a good area, but like there was like, I'm like, with Airbnb, there's no like background check. Like we could have just like,
you're lucky we're not creeps. You know?
Yeah.
But anyways, it was like not ideal because their kids were, kind of loud, and I was stressed with my first job. I hadn't worked outpatient like as a real world PT yet. So it was very stressful, but like never once did we doubt, even through that experience, that like we weren't doing exactly what we wanted to be doing.
Okay. Cause I was going to ask you guys, like after that, were you just like, what were we thinking? Like leaving these cush jobs in our home and all the things, you guys still knew like we're onto something here. Like this is
even like on the drive out, like it's so weird because I guess like we had our, hesitancies, or else we would have dived into it sooner. But like even on the drive out, like it just felt right. Like, like again, in our souls, like it felt right.
Yeah.
So like even through all the hardships, like never ever once did we think like we made the wrong decision.
Yeah.
That's totally how we feel. We remember looking in the rearview mirror at Kim's sister and dad and brother-in-law like waving, and like we were like, we looked at each other like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
But it felt so right. And it was just like I was so excited. I just wanted to get there and like get going. Because again, when we started, we thought it was a scam, to be honest. And so then we got into it and we were like, this is real. Like, holy crap.
Well,
we paycheck every Friday. Like what?
Yeah. And we get to like live in cool places, and we make way more money than we made both of us working full time, like working our asses off. Like, yeah, we're like, this is a dream come true. But in the beginning, we weren't sure, but like you were saying, it was like, even though it really didn't make sense in a lot of ways for us to leave and everybody thought we were crazy, that gut feeling, that inner knowing of just like, we know that we are doing the right thing and like we have to trust our hearts. And
look at us
here
now.
we are.
Yeah. Cheers to that.
Cheers to
cheers.
your hearts, you guys. Even when, okay, here's a question. When you guys decided that you're doing the damn thing, we're quitting our jobs, we're selling our stuff, we're going to hit the road, and you told your friends and family, I know, Skip, you're from a smaller town, you know, in the Midwest. Were they like, y'all are crazy? Or were they like, Skip and Jazz, let them go?
I mean, we've always kind of been probably more free-spirited than most of the people around us, but not nearly to the extent we are now. But
sure.
People definitely thought we were crazy. Her boss was like, he's lived in California her boss at the time had lived in California. He's like, you guys will be back in 3 months. Was that what he said, or was that what my dad's friend said?
My boss said you'll be back in 3 months, and then his dad was like, you guys are gonna hate California.
Somebody had told him that we would hate California.
Yeah, and we love California.
We basically traveled in California.
What's the hate?
I know.
Right?
I mean, it's expensive, but I mean, shoot, it's amazing.
The sides,
right.
mountains, ocean, food.
Why?
And if you know where Kansas lands on the map, we're about as landlocked as you can possibly be in the U.S. So we very much appreciate being near, you know, the ocean and mountains. And
was that your first time to California?
It was mine. Yeah.
I lived in San Diego with my mom for like 2 years when I was like 5 or 6. So I don't remember a lot, but I think that's always like, I've always felt like deep somewhere inside me, like I'm going to live in California someday. I never knew how that would happen or if it was actually going to come true. But looking back, I see now that I was going to live in California at some point.
Yeah, I totally get that. We had like the Pacific Coast Highway in California, one of our vision boards, like way back in the day, like before we could even afford to like go anywhere, like leave the house. And we're like, one day we're going to go to California. We're going to go on the Pacific Coast Highway. We're going to see the Golden Gate Bridge. And it was such a dream that I didn't know how it was going to happen. And then it's like, fast forward years later, we like lived there and we're like,
we lived on the Pacific Coast Highway. Like it was literally the road behind us. And we were just like, wow, like that's crazy.
It's powerful.
It really is.
What did you think, Skip, when you first got there? Were you like, this is amazing?
Oh yeah. I mean, before I knew anything about California, really, besides the movies and TV shows, people would say like, if I didn't know better, I would guess that you're from California. Because I grew my hair out the first time, like in Kansas as a Midwesterner in PT school. And then all my like instructors were like poo-pooing it because you're not professional if you have long hair. But anyway, so I feel like I've always kind of belonged, I guess, near the ocean. Like whenever we're near the ocean, it's like we get so like giddy and smiley and excited. So I think that's mostly what I felt when we showed up, is we were just like, oh my gosh, water.
Yeah, I totally feel that.
So you had mentioned something that you say the first week of your job was kind of stressful, the first 3 weeks, or was it just the first week?
Well, the first 2 weeks are always stressful, you know, just like learning a new EMR, like meeting new coworkers, learning a new system, learning a new building, X, Y, and Z. But especially the first week was stressful just because I didn't have a really great director at my first job. It's like he wasn't really looking out for me. He was just, you know, here you go, throwing me in, which now I can handle. I was like a new grad at the time and like had a lot of questions and things like that. So it was mostly stressful because of the management situation, I guess, but like treating patients and stuff wasn't stressful. I guess starting a new setting, like as a real world PT, was a little bit stressful as well.
Yeah.
But, you know, that like anxious, you know, nervous energy has dissipated the more and more contracts I've taken.
And you've gotten better at like kind of like asking the questions in the interview so you don't put yourself in that position.
True.
Yeah.
Ooh, pro move.
Pro
tip.
No, I know. I was just going to say, so during that stressful time of like your first travel assignment, you're just like, did you ever say that, okay, this isn't for me? Or were you like, okay, I want to push through this? Because that's your first assignment, right? You're away from home. Yeah. It's stressful. It's crappy. Like,
there were some like little dramatic moments. Like I remember probably after the first 3 assignments. There was a point during the first 1 or 2 weeks that I think I said something like, Jazz, I don't know how much longer I can do this. But it was like one day, and then the next day I'd wake up and I'd be like, okay, drama queen, like
So then I learned that after his first couple weeks, that's what he would say. And then I would say, it's going to get better. Or like, I know that this isn't really how you feel. It's just in this moment, it feels so heavy or pressure, whatever it may be. So, I was just like, the first time I was like, okay, like we're going to try it, maybe we just take 1 or 2 more contracts and then go back home. But then like it happened like 2 or 3 times, but always by the end of the contract, he was like, I love this. I can never go back to perm life.
Yeah. But it was definitely more of like a mindset self-worth thing than it was like the situation at hand. Cause I've always just like given 150% of what I have to what I'm doing. And I felt like I wasn't, like necessarily giving my patients like the best that I could, but I guess so it was kind of the situation I was in. Cause you're doing the best you can with the resources that you have, and you just started a new job and it takes you longer to document. So I think I was having like a conflict of like, like morals or something like I wasn't doing everything I could, even though I was, and that's what was sparking the kind of like, I don't know how much longer I can do this. Not that like it didn't feel right, if that makes sense.
Right. I totally get that. And I think there's a learning curve too, especially when you're used to the same place and the same people and you have your flow and you completely uproot that and you walk into a completely new place and you're like, okay, I have to learn. Everything is brand new. All of the people, the systems, it's overwhelming. And we've been doing it for 10 years and it still feels overwhelming those first couple of weeks. And you click in and you find your flow, and I think the more experience you have, the more confident you feel and the easier it gets. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to ask you.
Can I just say, I was going to say, we've been doing this 10 years and last week was my 2nd week. And I told Kim, I walked in and said, I almost walked out of the contract today. And she said the same thing of just like, it gets better, you're in your flow. But I literally walked up, put my stuff down. I was like, I almost walked out and we'll fucking figure it out. We'll figure it out. And she was like, no, like back. Slow down there, Bobby.
Yeah. Pump the brakes. We always have the same conversations and then it always ends up clicking in and then we're like, oh, we have 3 weeks left. Like it goes so fast. But I wanted to ask you, Skip, and then I want to circle back to Jazz because like we mentioned in the intro, Jazz works from home. And so kind of what that was like for you too, of working from home and being in a different place and all of that. But for Skip, I know as a PT, you can travel right out of school. And we're both radiology and you have to have at least 2 years. There's our light.
Ta-da!
Let there be light.
It's not a sensor. It just goes on. We have to have 2 years of experience at least before we can get out there and start traveling. So do you think like as a PT that being a new grad it's something that you wish maybe you would have had a little bit more experience before jumping into traveling? Or do you think that had anything to do with really feeling overwhelmed and you kind of can like figure it out on the fly?
No, I did 1 year of like a perm job and I felt like that was actually sufficient, like completely. And I know lots of new grads who have just jumped right in. I think it just has to do with like your personal confidence level. Because again, I don't think it had anything to do with my skills when I started, but it was more like how I viewed myself and how I was doing. Mm-hmm. So it was more like inner work that I had to do. And I guess maybe I wish that could have happened earlier, but like clinically and skills wise, I feel like I was completely ready for travel and probably even, right out of school I was as well. It would just probably be recommended to do your first travel assignment in something you've done as a student so that you're not like, working in acute care for the first time when you've taken all outpatient clinical experiences or something like that. Like I definitely wouldn't recommend that. Because you're not getting, most jobs, you're not getting like that mentorship and everything that you would like going into a new setting. But so no, I actually do. We kind of help like travelers or therapists get into travel. And I do recommend travel to people as new grads, as long as they feel very confident in their skills. Mm-hmm. And I tell them, same thing I just told you guys, like just try to land your first assignment in something that you've worked in before and feel confident in.
Yeah. Well, and we always say too, you can be a sonographer for 5 or 10 years, but it's not really based on the length of time you've been doing what you're doing. It's more about the confidence and the skill set, and also the willingness to just kind of roll up your sleeves and learn something new and jump in and like figure it out too, you know?
But I mean, that's what I love about the both of you is you guys are so open-minded. You're so willing to work on yourselves, and that self-reflection is huge as a traveler. I mean, if you go in closed-minded and just like, I'm the best, then you're going to be in for a rude awakening very quickly. We always say it's not about the quantity, it's the quality of the work you've done. There's students that have worked in IR at trauma facilities that can literally have 6 months and surpass a rural IR tech and that's been doing it for 30 years. So, you know, it's just like you said, is knowing thyself.
Well, and just to piggyback off what you said, because I think it's really powerful as like a side note. You mentioned like a lot of the struggles or challenges were more mental, right? It wasn't your actual skills. And I think as travelers, that is always the biggest opportunities for growth, right? Is that we're constantly being pushed out of our comfort zone. We're constantly mentally, you know, questioning ourselves. We feel, you know, out of our normal flow. And when we're triggered, it's a great opportunity to be like, okay, what's going on? How can I grow? What can I learn? What's going on here that can make me, you know, more confident moving forward? You know?
And I think probably the bigger challenging part as a probably newer grad going into travel is having the willingness or the like gumption to advocate for yourself, because you are a new grad and you feel like weird saying or advocating to yourself to maybe older PTs or management. Because that's probably why my first couple assignments didn't go as well as I wanted, because, you know, I wasn't willing to kind of like put my foot down as much or like just voice my concerns, or like, you know, if you're going to give me 6 evaluations on the first day, like I don't know how to use the electronic medical record. And unless you want me to take overtime today, then you need to give me some time to document. You know, I would say that as nicely as possible. But
right.
Now as an experienced clinician, like I don't hesitate to say things like that, even on the first day, because I'm like, this is the reality of the situation. In most places, it's illegal to work off the clock. So like,
kind, respectful way.
I can also be a little sassy when I'm describing it, but I say it very professionally and nicely.
Totally.
So I might call it sassy nice at times.
I like that, sassy nice. But that's what you have to do. I mean, you have to stand up for yourself. You just had this issue at his new job where the first week they asked him randomly if he could pick up call. There was nobody to take call. And he was like, okay, I'll do it to be nice. I was, you know, he's the new guy. You feel like you kind of have to. And then the following week, they said he had to do it again. And he was like, no.
They said it was tomorrow. They're like, so on Thursday, there's an open shift. You're going to take it. I was like, absolutely not. And they're like, what? What, you got stuff going on? I was like, actually, I do. Yeah. Like, I have a lot going on. And I took last week, so you guys can figure it out. Like, I'm not here to just take all of your shit. Like, I'm not doing it.
You got to set a boundary, a sassy
nice.
Yes.
And say like, because people will walk all over you too if you don't, you know, as a traveler.
Give them an inch and they'll take a mile, sort of.
Yeah.
Again, if you like screen these people through the interview, I feel like it is very doable to even sometimes avoid those situations just based on how the manager's communicating with you and things like that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Interviews are so important.
They're everything.
Right?
Everything.
Okay.
I wanted to say, so we get tons of questions always. What if my partner is in healthcare and wait, did I say that right? What if I'm in healthcare and my partner isn't? Can we travel? I mean, it's just like constant. And so you guys are the picture perfect couple to actually explain that. So you said you quit your job. So did you have to find another job that you could work remote, or did you already know going into it, I could do this?
So when we first started traveling, I was a financial analyst. And again, like I said, I was like coming home like 2 or 3 days of the week, like in tears, because I was just so unhappy. And I remember thinking like, when we started thinking about doing travel therapy, I was like, I'm going to ask them if I can take my job remotely. And I was like, and if they say no, then I'm just not going to stay. Like, I don't care what I have to do. Like, I will work at Starbucks. Like, there's nothing, you know, like I will work at the grocery store. I will do whatever I have to do to not be in the situation. And it was kind of because like that job, they were like, if you weren't sitting at your desk, then you weren't working. And I was like, I can still be productive and contribute. Even if I'm at home, I'm probably going to be more productive, like being in my own space and not doing like water cooler talk.
Right.
Yeah.
So I laid out a plan, and I was like, this is how I will track my work, how you'll know what I'm doing when I'm logged on. And that worked. And so I was able to take that job on the road for about a year. And then we kind of knew that. So the agreement was that we'd come back in 1 to 2 years, but then after a year we were like, okay, yeah, we're not going back. I know this now. Like, I can see this just like isn't going the way I thought it was going to. So I ended up leaving. And I think at the time I left because Nomadicare had a job opening. So I was like, let me go there and I'll just start doing contract work. And so at that point I just did contract work for different like small companies here and there, and then worked for a real estate investors for about 2 years. And now I am where I am at the University of Kansas, being a research project coordinator. I know that's a lot of information, but the point of all of that is if you can get creative and use your skill sets, then you can find a job to work remotely. And a lot of jobs, like if you are willing to learn, then they will train you. If you have like these certain skill sets and you can kind of show like the relationship, like there's a way to take your skills. I mean, unless you're like a doctor, or
Right.
like maybe
Well,
even like
medicine now.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
they can.
that's true.
Yeah. I mean, there's just there's just all these ways that you can find a way to work remotely, and there's like Upwork and Fiverr and those things. And I know that like sometimes jobs might be like $3 an hour, so you kind of have to like get creative and find ways to make it work, but there is a way.
Well, what about like flex jobs?
Yeah, flex jobs is a huge resource. It's like one of the biggest job sites with remote works, with remote jobs. And it does cost, there's like a monthly cost, but there's usually like discounts where you can get a membership for like $3.50 or something.
Oh,
Wow.
and it's all just like jobs that are available that are specifically remote.
Yep. Or hybrid or anything, but they vet the job so it's real.
Wow.
That's
Such a
amazing.
great resource.
I
What's it
know.
called? Flex Jobs?
Yeah, flexjobs.com.
And what's been nice about her kind of like working in several different industries or job positions, whatever you want to call it, is we've kind of like gained a lot of random skills because we've like looked into doing like copywriting jobs. So we've taken a course on like copywriting. We've taken a course on blogging. Like we just love to learn. We're kind of like nerds in that aspect. Like the course obsessive people. I don't even know what to call it. Like Project Next, which is like starting your own business, like Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. Like we've taken all sorts of courses, and those things can be like expensive to buy the course, but we know that those are going to up level our skills and pay off long term. So it's been nice to kind of like learn about all those different like niches through her kind of looking into other things as well.
Yeah.
Because I've gained new skills from it too.
Yeah.
Totally.
No, you guys are such our people. Like we're the exact same way. Like learn as much as you can. We take tons of courses. You can also learn so much on YouTube, which we're going to get into when we talk about your van build. But there's so much great information. There's so much access to people that you normally wouldn't have access to on podcasts or YouTube or through courses, that you can gain so much knowledge and learn things. And that's like our biggest passion, is like learning as much as possible.
Well, and then also, one of the benefits that came out of COVID is there's a lot more remote work now that wasn't ever. I mean, one of my buddies worked for Merrill Lynch, and I called him for his birthday on October 1st, and he's like, nope, still not back in the office. And he's like, and I don't think I am going to be. So he was a full desk job, running a department. And now he said his productivity is through the roof, and his bosses are actually really excited because now they don't have to pay for him to come to the office and the electricity and all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I left the job in sometime in 2019, and then COVID hit, and then that company went fully remote. And I was texting one of like my coworkers there that I was close with, and I was like, hey, how's it going? Like blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, we're all working remotely and we'll probably never go back into the office. And I was like, See? I was like,
yes.
You were onto something. You were a trailblazer.
Yes. I was like, things still get done, even if you're at home.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I just want to add just to the topic of like, when you're the partner staying home, if you're not in healthcare, it was challenging after I left my finance job, just to kind of find my like self-worth, or like I just really, I used to define myself in what I did. I still struggle with it sometimes, but not as much as I used to, but define myself by what I did. And when I kind of lost that part of me, or lost that, how would you say it? Like,
we're both like
achievers.
Believe it or not, like achiever mentalities, like have a little bit of type A to us, but we're very like chill type A people. So she just had a lot of her identity tied to what she did. And so it was like, when you weren't working for a little bit, it was like she had lost her self-esteem a little bit. And she had to kind of, like do the inner work, get her self-esteem back, like climb back out of that hole.
Like know that I'm still loved, even if I'm not like at this fancy job, or if I'm not like contributing as much financially as I used to. Totally. It was hard. There was probably like 6 months, hard 6 months where I was like, do I go back? I don't want to do this, but do I go back home and get a job so that I'm contributing more? Like, what do I do? And then I also struggled with like my role being like the dishes and the laundry, like if he's at work, like not like we always have a balance, but like at that time, that was my way of contributing. And I am not really like the mom type, or like, or like that caregiver type where it's like laundries, dishes, clean up, like go to the grocery store. Like I genuinely do not like those sort of things. So I really struggled, and it just took time to kind of work through that.
And now she's working and I'm not right now. So I'm doing all those things. And I'm like, see,
it's wonderful.
It's not like this whole thing where you're just being the housewife.
No. I never thought that, but I will say I love it when I'm like done working. I'm like, everything's clean, like the laundry's done. I'm like, okay, I'll work, you stay home.
Yeah,
totally.
I totally get that. And like, just going back to what you were saying about, your identity being wrapped up in what you do and kind of losing that and having to rediscover of like, okay, now I have some choices. What do I want to be doing?
Yeah.
Right? You have access to these courses, you might, coaching and blogging and YouTube and building bands and all these cool things and projects you guys have been doing. Like you get to kind of explore other parts of yourself of like, well, what do I want to do? If I'm not doing that, what can I focus my energy into?
Yeah.
No, totally. And I think even on my first assignment, that was the first time she hasn't worked since high school or even into that period. And I just remember coming home and she was like, I'm writing now and I'm blogging and I'm going to the park and I'm doing this. And I was still working. And then it flipped where she took the next assignment and I was off. And I remember sitting in Wisconsin at 12 o'clock and like falling asleep on the couch till like 3, just feeling like, what do I do now? Like I have no idea who I am, what I do, what I could be doing. But then once you get that itch and that tickle and you're like, wait a minute, like that's on me. So I started playing the guitar. Then I started writing. Then I started working at a gym and asking them if I could do their marketing for them. And it all just kind of spiraled into like, okay, like I can do this. But you're right. That first 3 months was brutal.
Yeah.
It's almost like I remember having a conversation and then I'll end it. My stepfather-in-law, he was like, it's solitary confinement for a reason. When you go into prison, because we were in Wisconsin coming from Florida in the dead of winter. And so it wasn't like I could just jump in the car and go. Yeah. So I was like trapped in the apartment and I was the first time I'd never worked. And that was, my thoughts were running through my head, things I've never heard before. And it was crazy.
But it's a really positive thing. Correct. If you allow it to come through and give you direction. But it feels wonky at first, right? And I totally agree with like the whole housewife thing. And that's so great for so many people that love it. And it's hard work.
It is. Yeah.
I'm exhausted, right? But it's like, it's not as fulfilling to be like, I cook and I clean, I do the groceries. Like I need more. And that's when I kind of got into the blogging and things. And I was like, oh, wow, this is exploring a creative side I never knew was there. Like, let's see where that goes, But I will say it is nice when you're the one working, when you come home and you're just like, everything is done. And you're not like, oh, Saturday, we have to go to the grocery store. We have to do laundry. Yeah. Like you get to just enjoy your time off because it's handled. You have like your house husband over here holding it down.
Yeah. And this is like the beautiful thing about travel. It's like, it's given us all that opportunity to explore that. And like the moment and like the time the extra time when your like partner can kind of provide financially. It's like, you get that instead of just going to a job from 9 to 5 and going through the motions, you have that space.
I'm currently going, it's like every time I stop working, I go through it again. Cause right now I'm like a mess. Like
Yeah.
I sit there in the morning and I'm like, okay, like there's so much I want to do. Where do I even start? So I'm having to like retrain myself again. Like, okay, at the beginning of the day, you have to decide on 3 things that are most important to get done. And like, I'm going through that whole process again. And I used to just like hide behind socialization all the time. Like probably until I was like 27, like whenever I had a free moment, I'd be hanging out with friends or, doing something, playing in a sport, but having travel and kind of being away from everybody I know has really kind of like forced me into myself. And I've just learned so much about myself in the last 4 years and just like am a completely different person on the other side. It's wild.
I love that.
I know, that's beautiful. I love that.
And I think too, like you were saying in the beginning, it's always really messy. And every time we like kind of reset, it's like we feel like we have a zillion things we want to do and we want to learn this and we want to focus on this and we got to do this. And it's like, it's almost so overwhelming to look at that you're kind of like, maybe we do nothing because it's
analysis
paralysis. Yeah. But I love what you said. It's like, okay, pick the 3 things. And that's what it's like, you always feel anxious until you get a list and you get a plan in motion. Because once you get in motion, you're like, you get into the flow and you're like, okay, like, and you build momentum and then it starts to kind of fall in place eventually.
No, totally. And I think like categorizing the value of healthcare traveling into the fact that you get time. And that is like, it's so hard. And we talk about in our live streams all the time is just like time, people. Like nobody will ever give that back to you. It's the most valuable thing. And you have it as a traveler.
Yeah, you can't really buy time.
Like, you can always make more money, but you can't get your time back.
Yes.
There it is.
I was actually just having this conversation with my sister. So my friend was going to be leaving a job, but it would make her happier. She would have more time, but she wasn't going to have as much money. And that was like a thing. And I was just like, and we feel this way. I know you guys do too. It's just like, I would rather work less and minimize life, minimize all the things and have more time and freedom to not only just enjoy your life and travel, but to work on other passion projects and all the other things. Then money's great. Like, don't get me wrong, but I would much rather have more time than work my ass off just to like be stacking the cash,
Get it, girl.
Guys, I'm looking at the time and I'm like, crap, are we going to get to van life?
I was just going to say, speaking of, let's transition into van life because you guys are the experts in healthcare traveling when it comes to that. And I think just kind of starting, like we obviously have been talking about your whole travel journey, but when did you guys, were you like, maybe we should build a van and live in it? Like, that sounds like a great idea and travel. Like, where did that come from?
We have different stories on this, so I'm going to let her.
Okay.
Again, it was my idea. I'm the idea starter of this relationship. He's more of like the executor.
I'm the doer, and she's the idea generator.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
still help do things, but
I mean, I also help generate ideas.
Yeah.
So we have the visionary and the integrator. That's what we just learned in the book we're reading. And I'm the visionary. She's the integrator.
But I'm also a visionary.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm also an integrator.
Correct. Me too.
We're all the things. Okay.
Yeah. But I guess when we first started traveling, we kind of always knew that we wanted like a tiny home on wheels. And I think when we first started, it was like RV at some point. And then once I started looking into what type of vehicle to get, I was like, wait a second, I feel like a van would suit us better because like RV, there's just more maintenance. It's like, you can't just like go into a city. It's harder to drive. So in 2020, I got obsessed with van life. It's like
YouTube, van life.
YouTube, blogs. Yeah. It was all I could think about and all I could do for like 4 or 5 months straight. And he was on contract in LA at the time. And then the pandemic hit. And so his contract got ended 2 weeks early. So in I'll tell my story and then he can tell his, but I knew that we were going to build a van that summer after his contract was over. Like
I knew that.
You knew it too, but you were like, I don't know if it's the time yet. I don't know like when or how or whatever, but like I had been doing all this research. And so I was just thinking now is the time, like, let's go back home. We're financially ready to build this van out. But,
I mean, that's practically what I thought too. I think I always just say like, we didn't know we were going to do it right when we got home, and we didn't actually. We took a month or a month and a half, and you were kind of doing like your freelance copywriting at the time. And then she was also like, of course, looking for vans online, and then she found the one. Yeah. And then I was like, I mean, I'm not really that hard to convince of things.
Right.
That's how he is.
Yeah,
I can convince him of anything.
At first, it's usually no, and then like once it brews in his mind, then it's yes.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Can I ask you guys why you decided to build a van than just buy one that was already like ready to go for you?
Oh,
Big
that's
project.
self or like professionally converted or even DIY converted vans that are already finished are just way, way, way more expensive than buying your own, like, you know, shell and building it out yourself.
Okay.
So that's, I mean, basically money. We had the money to DIY build a van, but we didn't have the money to buy one that was already built out. So we decided we were going to figure out how to build a van, even though we knew 0% how to do it.
Zero.
So,
I mean, is it significantly different? Like significantly to buy a fully?
It's at least, I mean, it's at least double, probably more like triple or quadruple the cost.
Wow.
Okay.
And
Because
especially now.
We were just talking about time, and I know you guys value.
Oh yeah.
And so how much, you know, that's what I'm wondering. If it's that significant, then yes. I was just wondering if it was like 5,000.
Well, there weren't any jobs coming up anytime soon. There were like 5 PT jobs nationwide because of the pandemic. So we were like, now's the time.
Okay.
What job am I going to get anyway? You know what I mean? So
let's have a fun project.
Yeah. And we did, you know, we spent 3 months of our life, basically sun up to sundown. I mean, either researching or executing the plan.
Yeah.
But it was so worth it because we didn't know how to use like power tools. We didn't know anything about electrical. We didn't know anything about plumbing. And we learned from YouTube and blogs. We just, you know, kept our heads down and just like kept grinding away and reading blogs and watching YouTube videos and figured out how to do all of it. And just our skills are so leveled up from it. It's wild.
Yeah, I would, to add on to that, I would say like our building skills, but also just our confidence and our self-worth. I think that we really grew in that experience. Especially, I really watched him grow because I remember at the beginning of the build, anytime we would like start to tackle something, it was, I don't know how to do that. And now it's, let me figure out how to do this. And so, it was just like, maybe maybe you could say you spent 3 months sun up to sundown, so your like hourly rate is too low. But I'm like the skills and the knowledge and just whatever that we learned, like there's not a price tag for that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Not to mention we made double what we put into our first van.
Right.
Like, when we sold it. So it was totally worth it.
I
mean, even the time we put in, you know?
Right. I remember watching you guys on Insta story when you were documenting the whole journey. And I was like, holy shit, like, this is crazy. Like, because we've never really been into van life. So like, I know there's that whole culture, right, of people building their vans and the whole thing. And I had never
say we're not into it.
No, I mean, like, we've just never, like, we lived in a van in New Zealand for a couple of weeks, traveling around, and it was amazing. But like, we realized that we might not be van people.
But I also say, you always say that, but I'm always like, if we would have been able to custom build it to our needs, then it would have been a totally different story.
Well, I was going to say, after listening to y'all's talk at TravCon, which was amazing. Yes. You turn people who were like, I don't think this is for me, to like, I was like taking notes. I'm like, okay.
I went and spoke to a dealership after your talk.
Oh my God.
I love that.
Hey, it really is. I think like you were saying, like just circling back to the figuring it out. If you guys know Marie Forleo, she always says everything is figure-outable.
Yeah.
We talked about her on our first podcast with you guys a lot.
Yeah. It's like our mantra, because it's so true. It's like you guys knew nothing about it. And you're like, hey, like, let's do this. We can figure it out. We're going to learn it together. It builds those chops. It builds that confidence. And then you guys ended up building this incredible van and like took it out and like lived in it. You know, like, it's just like crazy to see that. And then so when we talked to you the last time, you were building Bev. Okay. And you hadn't lived in her yet. So that was like its own project, its own thing that you guys did. But when you actually went out to live in it and you were working a contract, right? So for a healthcare traveler that's thinking of like, I'm going to be working and living in this van, what was that like for you guys?
Honestly, the first part of it was really, really easy because we were in Monterey, California, which is just kind of beautiful year round. And we stayed in a really like pretty campsite that had like gorgeous sunset views every night. So it was actually really great.
Yeah.
And I feel like really just weather dictates it. Like it was easy at first because we went to like the perfect climate, and Monterey has these perfect little like pull-offs on the side of the road to be by the ocean. So we didn't really have like a rough
I might argue that van life, if you're going to be at an RV park, like van life on contract is probably easier than off contract, only because you know where you're sleeping every night, you know where you're going to shower, you know where to dump, you know where to fill.
Get water. Yeah.
So like the decisions aren't there, and you're in your home. And so like even like lunch breaks, like he can just come out to the van and eat, or like, and then when we go on weekend trips, like we have a place to stay no matter where we go. So, I would say it's almost easier.
But that's if you're in an RV park, because like the exhausting part about van life as a healthcare traveler can be the extra chores that you have to do. So like Jazz just mentioned, like you have to find your water to fill up your fresh tanks. You have to empty your gray water, which is like the spill off of your dishes and stuff like that. You have to find a place to do those things. But when you're at an RV park, all those decisions are already made. So that like extra stress of your like van life chores are off of you.
Right.
But if you're just going to like rent a parking spot at somebody's house, or you know what I mean? Like not have all your amenities right next to you, that's when van life can get kind of exhausting.
Right.
Or if you're going to stay in not a perfect climate, like we stayed in Seaside, Oregon. The first month was beautiful because it was like August. I think I started August 31st.
September,
so it was like September was beautiful. And then the next 3 months were just like nonstop rain. So we were like actually stuck in our 60 square feet of our van, and it was not fun.
Yeah.
But usually van life is like you're living out of your van, not in your van. So like the doors are always open. You always have a fresh breeze coming through. Like you might be sitting outside half the time. So like it doesn't feel like the walls are closing in. But if the weather's not cooperating, if you're going somewhere where the weather's not going to work out and you're going to be stuck in your van, then it's not so fun.
That's where I'm like, no.
I have two questions. So you don't have a bathroom, so you have to go, like you use the campground, I guess, bathroom to shower and do your
so you can totally have a toilet in your van. We just
a shower.
We did it in our first van because public restrooms are just like way more abundant than you think they are in the US. Like there's literally a toilet everywhere. Like there are moments where you're cutting it close, but like we were totally fine with that. But in our second van that we're building currently, we are going to have either like an RV cassette toilet or a composting toilet. So we're going to have that option.
Okay.
But we're not sacrificing the square footage for a shower like, a lot of people choose to do. And with a shower, you have to carry tons and tons and tons of water. And we don't want to have like that extra weight or have to fill the water that often.
Okay.
The shower makes sense. Are you sealing off the toilet, or are you guys just going to be pooping in all your glory with each other?
Oh, right.
So we haven't done it yet, but probably how it'll work is one of us will take Honey for a walk and the other one will go.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, you'll get a system going.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it'll be more like we'll just use it when, like, if there's a public toilet, we'll go there.
Still gonna opt for that.
But if like, we're at this beautiful campsite and we don't want to have to leave, then we'll go in the van.
But you actually don't realize either how nice it is to not have to clean a toilet or to buy, like basically have to buy toilet paper. It's actually really, really nice because that's so expensive.
The little things it adds up.
So,
we've been buying like those like toiletries stuff for the condo. We're like, when has this gotten so expensive?
Right? You're like, what the heck? I know we had a toilet in our van, a toilet and a shower. Never used the shower, but I have like a teeny tiny little bladder. So for me, like I would be running back and forth to like the bathroom. So we did have that just for tinkling.
Yeah.
So I have two quick things about that. One is pee smells worse than number two. Number two smells when it's mixed with water. So I would say dumping pee is more gross.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
For a while. Anyways.
I don't know. We've never dumped number two yet. So.
Yeah, but in Bev, yeah, but with compost, anyways. But so anyways, with Bev, we had like little like Nalgene bottles that we would go into. And for the women, I had like a little funnel, and I learned how to use the funnel to go into a water bottle. But I think for our second van is named Fran. And for Fran, we're going to cut a hole through the bottom. and then I'll have like the funnel and it'll just go out the bottom of the van.
If you're in a place where it's appropriate to do so.
Right. Yeah.
So literally, Fran the van.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, Francesca the Vanchesca.
I
love it.
love
Granny the
that.
Vanny.
Granny the Vanny. I love that.
So, okay, so you guys decided to sell Bev, and now which was your first van, and now you're doing this new rebuild with Fran.
Yeah.
What are you doing differently? Like, what's going to make it easier for you guys to live in this thing?
Let me add to that question. If you can remember the first question, are you
I
guys?
have one more too.
Are you guys just like jump in and do it, kind of like you never know until you go kind of people? Or did you try to really think things through? Because now that you're building the van here, was it because you learned so much that you were like, we need a new van? Or was it just, we want a new van?
So the main reason we needed a new van is because we got a puppy, and
Honey.
she was supposed Honeybee. Yeah, she was supposed to be like 35 pounds, and she's probably like 50 right now.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so
Why are you feeding her?
She doesn't.
no, she's just bigger than they thought she would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's not like.
She barely
Don't
eats. We're like,
Yeah,
can
she
you
barely
eat your
eats.
food? Like, she's
Anyways.
not food incentivized. It's very frustrating.
But anyways,
Yeah.
you made me lose my train of thought.
So
okay,
we got
so
a new van.
we got a new van basically because the walls started closing in with Honey in there because she needed a space for her thing. She needed a space herself. Like, she didn't really have a space in our van because we didn't build it with the intention to get a puppy. But so we started looking into selling it. And actually, my parents' neighbor in my itty bitty town had the same van that we did, but 2 feet longer. And he had planned to build it into a camper van as well. So he had bought that van before our first van, Bev. So we walked our happy butts over there and we're like, do you want to sell your van? And he was like, no, I'm going to build it into a camper van. So at that time, he still had those plans. So we bought our van, built it out, traveled in it for 2 years. And then we asked him again because it didn't look like much progress was happening. And he was ready to sell the van. So I don't think he was ready to take on the project. I don't really know.
But he gave us a really good deal on the van, and it only had 1,500 miles when we bought it.
So it was like basically a brand. I mean, it's 2019. It had 1,500 miles on it, so it's basically a brand new van. We get like to push the restart button.
Yeah.
On
Wow.
like
And it hasn't been built at all. Like, it's gutted. Okay.
He has materials, but he hasn't done anything.
Okay. So then what are you guys going to do differently than Bev? Like, what are the top, like, you're like, we're going to do this differently and it's going to make life easier for us.
So basically the main thing is Honey has a built-in like kennel now. So she has like a space or a place to go to when, we're kind of shuffling around each other. It's a small space. Like, we just say, hey, Honey, go place, and she can go into her little den. It's just like built into one of our benches that we've created. And then, so this might only make sense if you know a little bit about van life, but instead of like a dinette bed, so a dinette's like in an RV, you have like 2 benches and a table, and the table comes down and, makes a bridge to make your bed.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of that, that's what we had in our first van. We have a higher bed that's like fixed. So then once you open the back doors, there's like this fixed garage space where we can store things. So like
nice.
If we decide to become like snow bunnies and go like skiing, we can like get our own gear and actually fit like substantially large things in the van.
Oh,
Love that.
nice.
So that's another benefit. And then our bed actually, so you guys might have to go on Instagram to make this make sense, but our bed actually pushes in and out too. So it's kind of like on slats. So during the day, we can push our bed in. This isn't making any sense.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you.
Totally.
So we have like a queen bed in the back of our van.
It has 2 pieces.
And it's sliced into 2.
Okay.
So we can pick up one mattress, put it on top of the other, push the slats in, and then that second piece of the mattress comes down onto a day bed that we've created under that part of the bed that's pushed in.
that will make like a couch.
Genius.
That's what we would have.
That was our biggest, like, we don't want to put the bed away every week and take it out. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Even like,
And then,
It was above the driving.
yeah, but like the one down below, that's why we would never go down there.
yeah. And then probably the one other main thing
Another big change.
Big change is we got a bigger fridge. I'm very excited about it.
That wasn't going to be my big change, but we also got a,
I won that argument, but, and we put it on top of a cabinet this time. So our fridge is like actually at eye level. Like if you look at van life Instagram, a lot of people put them like down into a cabinet. So you have to like kind of like crouch your neck and like look down into the fridge. It's easy to let, stuff get pushed to the back of the fridge and go bad. But now everything we have is on eye level. So our food's not going to go bad.
Makes a huge difference.
We can fit more food.
And it's just more convenient. You're used to, when you cook every single day, you don't want to have to be like this,
crouched down.
Getting in.
I was going to say, that's very PT of you, ergonomics.
Yeah.
But I have to add my big change is this time we're going to have like a desk area for me. And I'm going to have like a second monitor so that I have a dedicated workspace every day that I can go to. And when I'm not using it, the table will go down and it'll be a bench.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I'm super excited about
So we're
that.
getting in the weeds, but basically okay, our bed is usually a queen. It's pushed into a twin, right? And then in front of that, that's the like day bed portion is what we call it. And then the dinette is like this, and it has a table between two benches. And then the table comes down. And so now we have like an L-shaped like lounge area in our van.
What?
Oh, that's
Wait, and you guys are
amazing.
like building all of this yourselves?
Yeah, it's like 70% done. Yeah.
Wow.
Having a custom van makes all the difference because van life can be inconvenient, but when it fits your needs, when it's built for you, it's way different.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the last question I wanted to ask was about, you said that you guys cook every day, and we cook pretty much all meals at home. Like we love to go out to eat, but we like to eat healthy and we do a lot of cooking. And that was the other thing with our van, like couldn't get in there and like do my good work in the kitchen.
And on top of that, couldn't stock up on groceries.
Yeah.
Like grocery runs every day.
It was a small van, but what are your thoughts on just being able to cook a real meal like you would in like an apartment? Is it same, or do you just have to think differently about the meals you're going to be preparing?
Honestly, cooking is a challenge for us, even in like house life.
So I don't know if we're like the best ones to answer that, but you can make you can custom build your van to where if your kitchen is your priority, that's, like you can do the oven, you can make sure you have countertop space, you can make sure you have enough storage for all of your food. So I don't, again, if that's what you like, then just build your van to where that is the most, the priority.
So we're basically like kind of like lazy crock pot cookers. Like we like to cook in bulk and then just kind of eat that throughout the week.
Okay.
But we'll make like a healthy meal on Sunday, maybe 2 meals, and then we'll just eat that throughout the week versus like cooking every night. So we didn't make like an oven in our van because we probably wouldn't use it that often, and it eats up like square footage,
Yeah.
But there are people that are massive like foodies and cooks that just customize their van to accommodate that. And, you just have to consider things like the power draw of the oven, because like we have an off-grid electrical system, right? So if you're running the oven all the time, it's going to drain your batteries.
Unless you get a propane one.
Yeah, but you can get.
Or you're plugged in, right?
Or you can be plugged in.
Yeah, but you're in van life, like quote unquote van life, you're not really plugged in. You're mostly, I would say most van lifers are off grid 99% of the time.
Not us, buddy.
Well, we were in the campgrounds every night.
I feel like if you want to be plugged in, like you might as well get like a travel trailer, an RV, or something that's kind of designed to like live in the RV park versus like one of the biggest benefits of van life is the ability to be off grid and like go find those beautiful camping spots like by a lake or with a mountain view or like with an ocean. Like that's the appeal of van life.
Can you be off grid when you're in a contract though? Or is this only when you guys are van lifing, like your adventures on the weekends and stuff?
We would go off grid on the weekend, but like for tax reasons, we're not tax experts, but like we're required to pay for an RV site, duplicate expenses, or, we choose an RV site, but you could also,
there are other ways.
From our understanding, you could rent a parking space or something like that, but you have to be duplicating expenses just like you do with short-term housing during an assignment. But when I'm not working and we are full-time van life, we don't have to pay rent like where we're traveling to. We're still paying rent at home, but we don't pay it wherever we're traveling, which is a huge cost saver because hotels, Airbnbs.
Oh yeah.
You guys know how quickly those can like eat up your budget.
Yeah. That's what we were saying. Like, I don't know if we could live in a van full time, but we really want to get one for long weekends, adventures, like just being able, how much freedom it gives you. You can just go out and explore and not have to pay $200 for an Airbnb, like
a night.
It's crazy.
Well, I mean, and we always get the itch when we've been traveling internationally for a long extended time. And then we know we have to come home and our families I mean, they have spaces for us, but you know, it's one of those things that
That's
we're
a whole
always
other topic. Yeah.
There's always a million people around. Yeah.
And we always have to get a hotel or an Airbnb, and we're just like, why don't we get a van? Like we could just pull up in the driveway and still have our separate space.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be good. And then that dies out after, you know, we get settled somewhere.
Yeah. So we used to like, after I would take a contract, so we did short-term housing for the first 2 years. And whenever I would finish a contract, we'd feel like stressed and like we needed to sprint back home to Kansas because we didn't want to pay like astronomical Airbnb or hotel fees. So if we didn't have like a friend to go stay with affordably, like we would go back home, which is not a short drive.
Yeah, I remember one day because we got like stuck in, like there was a wreck and then there was traffic. We drove like 16 hours in one day before the van.
To actually only drive like 8 or 9 hours.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Right.
Versus if we had the van, we could have just been like, okay, let's just pull over and, you know, stay, you know, there's all different kinds of places to stay. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you guys are obviously pro van life. If anyone is listening that's maybe considered it, but they're not really sure where to even begin, like what would you say to someone that's like where would they start? Like the first step of like, let me see, where do I go first?
Well, first of all, we are pro van life, but also it's not for everybody. Like, you know, like we would love everybody to live in a van because like of the growth and everything that you experience from it. But some people aren't going to be able to, you know, I guess like be able to handle the everyday stressors, or it might not be worth the things that you're sacrificing, might not be worth what you're gaining from it.
Mm-hmm.
But if van life sounds like it's for you, which feel free to hit us up if you want to learn more. But you can look on sites like you used Car Gurus and AutoTrader.com.
Well, that's to buy.
But things that you could do to figure out if you want to. So you could either rent a camper van, which it can be on the expensive side, but you know, if you're only going to do it for a couple days to get a taste, or maybe a week and take like an epic trip.
But again, they rented and then they were like, this is not for us.
Yeah.
No. So just take that with a grain of salt.
So, but then we decided not to get it. So it did kind of give us that recognition that we were just like, you know what, this isn't for us. And we thought we were going to be obsessed, you know?
Yeah, but also if you're like trying to go on a national park excursion, like it's the best way to do it because you're so close to the parks where you sleep and stuff like that. So even if it is expensive, maybe like on an Airbnb level, you have the freedom. And then if that's too expensive for you and you already have like a mini SUV or a vehicle where you could throw a mattress in the back, like try that, because honestly, it's pretty similar to van life. Like it's not as luxurious, or it's not like glamping like van life is, but it's still very similar. And you have to figure out how to get electricity. You have to figure out how to get water. You need to figure out where you're going to go to the bathroom. Like those are all everyday like decisions that we have to make when we live in a van. So it gives you a really, really good taste of what it might be like.
Okay. This just sparked one last question. Because as we know, like we can get really burnt out with traveling, right? We talked about it. We're like, we're done. We're hanging it up, whatever.
Burn the scrubs. Do
you think that with van life, because there's also a million decisions to make and other things you have to do, I guess that's the same in apartment life too, but it's like all the little things you have to think about and do that you don't necessarily do when you're settled in an apartment. Do you think it adds to any kind of burnout for you guys, or it's not that serious?
If anything, van life prevents burnout for us because I can afford to take way more time off work because we're living so affordably when I'm not working. So
good answer.
Again, before I needed to take another contract on the West Coast, or we needed to go back home to Kansas. So we weren't paying to live.
Right.
Or, we were paying very minimally. We're paying rent back home, but like we're not paying extra money to live that we weren't already paying. You know what I mean? So van life, because we pay very, very little to live when we're off grid, like I can take more time off work during the year to avoid burnout and kind of like explore my own passion projects. Cause like the last 3 years, I've only worked like 6 months out of the year, which is incredible. You know, like it's not only 2 weeks a year, like a perm position. So it's just like, it lets you get your kind of like your soul back.
Totally.
I love that.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think like, as I feel like that's a really good question of like, does the van life chores like really get to you and kind of add to that travel exhaustion? And I'm trying to think if like we've ever experienced that in the van.
I mean, probably like on a small level, like, you know, like I get off work and we have to go to the laundromat. It's like, it could be way easier to have like, you know, a washer and dryer in our unit, but we didn't have that most of the time in California anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
We
it's
have laundry
maybe
not in our apartment here. So
I know we have to go down, so it feels like that. Anyway.
yeah.
so maybe what the answer is like, you know, with those chores, like if we ever are experienced that, it's almost like it's just life.
It's just
Like,
like
yeah, like there's going to be problems in a house life. There's going to be things that pop up in van life, like no matter what. And I think it kind of comes back to like checking in with yourself and growing and like figuring out like, what do I need right now? Like, do I need to, like, that's why we're at the condo right now, is just to like kind of recharge and regroup and finish the van and just get settled in my new job and just kind of take the time to do things where like we don't have to make decisions about where we're going to shower or, you know, where we're going to fill up with water. But I think it's just always like checking in with yourself and like figuring out what you need.
Well, and
great
like
perspective.
you learn to be more intentional with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So like in a van, we only have 2 or 3 dishes of each, like of a bowl, of a plate, of a fork. So like you wash your dishes when you use them and then you put them away.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Versus like with a dishwasher, or with a sink, you like a regular house sink, you just let everything pile up and then you do it all at once. So that's like intentionality, right? Or like when we do laundry on a Sunday at the laundromat, we meal prep in the parking lot of the laundromat because our house is right outside. So you like stack these chores that kind of suck. You just, again, that's intentionality, right? So you find ways to make it more sustainable.
I love that. I know. You guys have
all
figured
the
it
tips.
out, man.
I love you guys. We could literally talk to you like all day. We said before we came on, like we could talk for 5 hours.
And I'm like, I'm not done. Like, let's keep going.
I have so many more questions I wanted to ask you guys. But just like for everyone listening, where can they find you guys, connect with you, support you? Also, I don't think you guys are doing this, but you should be coaching people that want to get into van life?
Like informally, yes, we definitely are. Like people message us a lot on Instagram and just ask us questions. So I guess I think we even have hopped on like a Zoom call with people just to like answer some of their questions before. But there's like in van life, there's like, you know, experts like on van life, like we know it. And I don't want to like undermine that or not, whatever.
But I feel like in healthcare traveling, there's not a lot of people doing it. So it's
that's very true.
Yeah.
For like our community, right?
And like there, if you go type in van life on YouTube, there's, especially now versus 2020 when we did our first van, like there are just resources for like days.
But I will say, I mean, Aaron, Kim's right. Like
one-on-one.
Oh, no. Just like for travel healthcare workers, like van life versus like being a van life travel healthcare worker is very different.
Yeah, but okay, so her question was, where can they find us?
Oh yeah, sorry.
I know, we can let's just go. Come on.
Yeah.
We're on Instagram and TikTok at Skip and Jazz. So that's SKIP and the word JAZZ. So those are our names. And
we'll put it in the show notes too. So
yeah. And then our blog is skipandjazzjohnson.com. So just the same thing, but with Johnson at the end of our last name. And is there anything else? I mean, we were like on YouTube for a hot sec. That's still like in the back pocket. Yeah. It's a dream of ours. We want to do more YouTube, but it's
so much work.
It's a lot of work, man.
The editing,
video editing. Yeah.
So we're on there too.
I love the film, but the editing part. Yeah.
I know.
I literally was going through and found like our day in New York, and I was like,
from like 3 years ago.
That never came out. Like the entire video.
Yeah.
So, and so we post mostly to like inspire people to chase an alternative lifestyle, but we also specifically coach like PTOT SLPs into thriving, successful travel therapists. So if anybody wants help with that, we can help with that. If you want to know more about van life, we're totally open to answering any questions you have.
Yes.
Or if you want to watch us do like some stupid TikTok trends, like we're always down to do those silly dances and stuff like that.
That's what I was saying. Did that come during the van build? That's when TikTok hit, right?
This was like such a missed opportunity. So we were on TikTok. We were like having like really good success. And then we started building the van. So we stopped doing TikTok right when 2020 happened. I'm like, we could be TikTok famous.
100%. And like doing it fun while you're building the van.
Yes.
Tips on,
so we're sitting there like posting on Instagram stories. Like I'm just learning how to post an Instagram story because I barely know how to do that. And
in
we're
2020,
and we're like, why didn't we just like make TikToks? hours.
Yeah, because those only Instagram stories are only 24
Yeah.
hours. I'm like,
Right.
we would spend probably an hour and a half every day after the build to upload. Because then after a while, people are like, where's the van build update? So we were like, we got to get this done. And I'm like, why weren't we putting it on TikTok? So anyways,
Well, now
That's
with
okay
reels,
because
I
the
feel like
overall-
you can do the reels and then on TikTok too,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
yeah.
I don't even think Reels existed yet. But
No, they didn't.
Right. But now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
You
it was
could
just
have
like,
taken your TikToks and thrown them over to your reels, and now you have
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. so my message with that is like, just do the thing. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't feel like you're ready, just do it.
love
Like,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been wanting to get on TikTok too.
I've been
We like
doing
never
my-
do it.
I've been posting every day.
Oh, you're supposed to be.
I have been. Go check.
I'm gonna check when we get off.
Go check.
All right.
All right, so I have a guinea pig question for you guys. I'm gonna test this out. So
Final question.
final. Don't know if it's gonna work, but it'll be fun. So Kim and I's slogan tag is map your own path and always stay Travsessed. And so with this travel life, what does mapping your own path, and I mean I want to include Travsessed in a way, but like what is your definition of mapping your own path?
Like creating your own life.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's finding a way to make like this life where we are just making decisions based on what we want and not for anybody else or society, like to make this a long-term sustainable thing. I mean, travel healthcare, I have no idea whether it's on the horizon forever. I mean, it probably is. I mean, we're healthcare workers, we're needed everywhere, but we want to have even more freedom than we do like being in one place for 3 months. It sounds ridiculous, but that's like even a little bit.
No, it doesn't.
That's a little too much commitment for us now. So we are going to find a way to be able to go wherever we want, whenever we want, and also be able to meet our financial goals.
Amen.
God, beautiful.
Amen.
Jazz, anything to add?
Yeah, probably, but I'm more of like a thinker. Like, I got to process things.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So like, just I guess to recap the question of like, so like building your own pathway.
Like
So
mapping your
what
own
does
path
creating your own path look like? Or
mean to you?
Yeah, and it could be the same. Like it feels like you
Yeah.
guys are on the same page of like
Oh.
wanting to have that freedom to really do what you love and live a life on your own terms, you know,
Yeah.
untethered to anything.
Mhm.
know?
Yeah. I mean, what Skip said is definitely how I feel. I just didn't know if I could add anything.
I can't believe
to
you
it.
don't have anything to add.
I know, because that was a deep question.
It took a minute
You
to
know,
think.
like-
I know.
Like I feel
Throw
like
it
my
in the singer, Bobby.
Hey,
I figure things out as I talk. She
I do too.
I don't. I'm the same as you. I have to like think about it before, or it just like doesn't come out the way I want to do.
Well, guys,
So
like we said, go
let her-
ahead. No, go ahead.
No, because we were gonna go off on another tangent. So go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like I said, we could talk all day, but we really, really appreciate you guys' time being our first video podcast
Yeah.
on the Travsessed Podcast. So I want to just raise a glass. Cheers to you guys. We love speaking
Love
to
you
you. We
guys.
love being in your
Cheers.
presence. So
Cheers.
thank you.
And everybody go follow them, reach out to them, all of the things. And then they're going to start coaching for van life and create a course soon. Too. So looking for that.
And then
All
we're
right.
gonna start having weekly Zoom calls.
Yes.
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 If we've learned anything from this podcast, that is it.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
I love
right,
it.
guys.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys.